تست.
Everything well? Balance management. Don't expect more.
No.
Well, good afternoon to everyone. It's time to open this visualization, graduation, vacancy graduation. I will say a few words about the session itself, what to expect, a few words about the topic, and then I will give you the floor. My name is Apostolos Zubalas. I'm chairing this session. I'm an associate professor in a couple of groups at the university, and I was chairing the committee. Here we have with us Dr. Athanasios Tsetas. He's an expert in tire driving, so it's a very similar topic, related to what he was working. Dr. Kanakevich is an expert in ice and also related to this work indirectly. And we have one member, he had to excuse himself, he had to travel, but he already gave a bit of the evaluation for this. The topic relates to vibratory pile driving, right? It's about non-linear dynamic system identification and pile driving. I think we are going to explain it, but it's related to this huge vibratory piles we install for those wheels. Right? So it's really powerful. And we have to put them into the source. Right? And this process is this topic is very exciting. So I'm very glad that at least one student was trying to pick it up. So you will give a talk for about half an hour, and then there will be a round of questions. First, I will give you the floor, and then I have to ask questions out of curiosity or technical, whatever you like. Right? We're not going to leave this room without your questions, so prepare those, and then we will continue with the committee. The committee will examine, of course, as well. We will read the final grade. That will take roughly this whole process 1 hour, and then the committee will withdraw for some confidential deliberations as we call them. So we will discuss the final grade and to give the final grade. But forget that you know also that probably you know the procedure that we have already green light Okay, that means you will graduate. Right? So you only are going to challenge him to decide on the final way. That can be anything between 6 and 10. So all the possibilities are. I think that's all, right? So the floor is yours, please.
Yeah. Hello everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, so that's the basic six about nonlinear dynamic system identification in the context of file logic. Of course, I think you're familiar with files.
Hello everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
You can either
I'm at home.
hammer a file into the file,
Yeah,
or you can
so that's the thesis. It's about nonlinear dynamic system identification in the context of file
throw in a
logic.
hammer, just shake
Of
it.
course, I think you're familiar with files. Yeah,
These
basically,
are
you can
the
either
rule identification.
hammer a pile into the soil or you can shake it into the soil. So by pile driving, it's just basically instead of
my main goal was to get doing, so
dropping a hammer, just shaking it until it keeps on moving. A bit of an overview of the presentation.
And try to create what a surrogate model. So instead
An
of
abstract. So what's my main goal? What's the main idea I'm doing? So the abstract aims, the research aims to improve understanding of the nonlinear file to solid interaction and try to create like a surrogate model. So instead of just doing it empirically, just based on experience, try to actually formulate an analytical model that you can use. Say, I would have a test, I would get some measurements from that test and make a new model. That model can now be made to make predictions, apply different loading, different frequencies. Then I could say optimize what's my amplitude, what's my what's my frequency, that's the optimum for say quickest driving, lowest noise, least energy, least cost, and so on. Why is this important? It relates closely to offshore energy. So, in terms of wind turbines, which are often installed in the sea using pipelines. So, more efficient pile driving translates to bigger wind turbines because they become cheaper, they become more.
As long as you have some measurements, you have some idea.
However, the process I'm making is basically very generic, so it can be made to identify any dynamic system, say a high-rise building under wind and earthquakes. So as long as you have some measurements, you have some idea of your system, you could use those to try to identify that system. And specifically in the context of having, say, very limited amount of data. So normally in terms of, say, machine learning and AI, whatever, you have a very large data set and from which you try to make out some what are the main components, try to fit those. But that's not really common for all applications. So when you have very limited data sets, you have to say, do it smarter, inform more pieces into a model.
So you could either go to
what's the main problem? That so in terms of file driving, there aren't really any, say, well-known analytical models that are not very computationally expensive. So you could either go say the constitutive model route. So you make front-end model of the soil, its properties, its dynamic properties, which also starts from an assumption that you get, say, some constitutive dynamic relationship with strain, stress strain, whatever, that you build into a front-end model, and then you analyze that model. But still, that's very computationally expensive, and it's not reliable because you're building a lot of your work on work that's already, say, not really built for the task at hand. So there is some data about the dynamics of soil, but that's in the context mostly of earthquakes, but not really in the context of pile driving.
Some of the research questions.
So the goal is to make a simpler model that I could effectively use to model the interaction between the soil and the pile. Some of the research questions. If I have a nonlinear dynamic system and I have, say, one or two tests from it, say I have the input, I have the output, can I identify that system just based on that limited data set? So if I have, say, one or two tests, but not that much, would that be enough? The one under it. So how is the system identification process physically formed? So I think the most common application of system identification, I think it's in electrical engineering, in control, like monitoring and prediction. But say if I know something about my system in terms of physics, what should I expect? How much is it to be? If I know more about the system, can I add more of that info into my, say, search to make it more efficient, to drive more relationships? Uh, Again, there are also many types of identification approaches in the frequency and the time domain. So which one should I go for? Which methods work best with, with limited data? Which ones work better in the context of soil and pile driving? Again, say if I say drive a surrogate model for pile driving, I have a new system. How do I qualify that? Is it really accurate? How would I be sure that it's reliable since don't have that much data set to say, train on a portion and say validate on the rest? So what criteria would I use to say this system is really reliable? Finally, it's a point I think I should get back to later. It's about a very big assumption I'm making, but I'll get back to it. So what are my main goals? Basically to make sure that for a dynamic system, if I have very limited data, I can identify it. That's the basic idea. So yeah. Next, I would say I would try to improve the understanding of soil-pile interaction in terms of actual, say, relationships, or how does it correlate to velocity, to weight of load, to parameters. To build a surrogate pile model that I can use to make new simulations, get the new results. That's the main goal. Again, since I have very limited data, so in terms, I had like 4 pile tests, which aren't very long. I think the maximum was like 2 minutes. So I don't have that much data set. So to start with, I thought it would be better to actually like start on similar systems as benchmark cases. So you have a very well-known dynamic system, you simulate that system, try to identify it based on the things you already know about it. And then we'll try to apply that to my test data. Here are some of the benchmark tests. So basically, some very systems. So trying to see how different approaches work at the same time and identify. How did that go? So basically, I would say I have a known system, say a living oscillator, say just basically Newton's first law plus a cubic stiffness. So try to simulate the system. I would have, say, an external force, my loading, would add some noise to the loading, because that's more realistic. I don't get like a perfect harmonic excitation, whatever machine I'm using to load. So I would add some noise to my external force. I would formulate my equation of motion. I would do a state space formulation and numerically solve the dynamic equation and get a response. Afterwards, I would get my response. I also add some noise into that. Because you get noise in both excitation. Because you say your vibratory hammer is not perfect, and you get noise in your measurements. I get like 5 to 10% noise. That was just a personal choice. So then I have input, I have output. I'll try the identification approaches and see how well it does. When I do it again, say I would bring a new force. I would say reformulate my state space formulation, solve it, and see how does it do to the actual system. Okay, how does my model look? So I've started with just a single degree freedom system, which is basically mass times acceleration should be equal to the mass times acceleration, but the internal force should be equal to the external force. Basic equation. So if I just take that to the right hand side, mass times acceleration equals to internal force. So external force minus the internal force. So what I'd like to do is just to represent the internal force, the force in my system that I have no idea about. I would reformulate into just a summation of different features. Summation of CF times functions of velocity and displacement. Why only velocity and displacement? So when going just to a single degree of freedom system, that's my major state variables. So for a system, I would know everything. So velocity, displacement, external force,
So
mass acceleration.
each
We
of
don't really
the
know the relationship between velocity and displacements and how do they add to each other. That's my main goal. So if you look to the matrix, so
summation of multiplied by this coefficient will give you the
yeah,
curve.
so
So I know everything
for
except
each of the measurements, so at time 0, time 1, time 2, whatever, I would have, say, some relationships between y
the
and
last
also
regressor, it's very
which
good.
the summation of multiplied by those coefficients would give me the internal force. So I know everything except the constants, which is an optimization problem, which is solved using regressors.
That's not really
I've went with a lasso regressor because it's very good in eliminating unneeded terms.
it's not really
Because I'm starting, say, with guesses, and if I see, so my main goal is to not have too complex of a relationship that's not really, I can't really see into it. What is this? If I have like 100 terms, it's not really practical, and it's not really, it doesn't really inform you much about the relationships. Okay.
so for the benchmark cases, say so for what
This formation is basically called the RX model, the autoregressive exogenous model, but there are more complex ones, which I can also.
the magnitude is same is within a certain value.
So for the benchmark cases, say, so for whatever kind of cases, I've just basically made some random values for the coefficients, say for the stiffness, the cubic stiffness, so that their magnitude is, say, is within a certain value. So for example, if my noise is, say, 50% of, say, a force of 100, if my internal force in a specific term, say the cubic stiffness is less than, say, 1%, I'm not going to see it in my identification. That makes sense. It's not really realistic to be able to see something that's smaller than the noise of your instrument. Okay. Yeah, so we can simulate, get the displacement, get the velocity, velocity and acceleration. Then from all of those, I can rebuild the internal force and the external force, and the external force. Then subtract the acceleration. That's the internal force. Then my goal is to fit onto this, say, black line, which of course has, say, some accumulative noise. The first noise is from the noise to the external force. The second noise is the one applied to the acceleration and velocity. So it's kind of magnetic. However, since it's a benchmark case, I still have, say, what's my ideal solution. So I know the exact one.
It's basically you try to
quality
in a three-dimensional space. Your
okay, one of the first approaches I went to, which seems like it makes sense, it's called the restoring first surface by Masri and Kohei. It's basically you try to plot in a three-dimensional space your velocity, your displacement, and your internal force. And you have, say, some points which are shown. Yeah, those are some points. You basically try to fit a surface onto that point. So there are some 3D fitting approaches. You could think of it as like a 3D least squares, basically. So try to minimize the distance between my surface and each of the points. Then you get the surface. The gray blackish one is the actual ground state. So you could use some different machine learning approaches to do that. You could look at, say, different criteria to compare, okay, which one should I go for? Should I just go with this one because I have, say, a lower RMSE, the square error, or one. So, yeah. So ideally, you pick a machine learning approach to fit a surface. Then the restoring first surface method basically assumes you could do a kind of a separation, very similar to model of proportionality, when you basically you could separate the y and y dot, and you would get, say, certain equations that you could convert this 3D surface into an equation of y and y dot. It's done mathematically. If you're interested in the math, it's in the paper, it's in the thesis. And from that new surface, now you have a surface, some shape, you derived it into a function of y dot. And now, since, back to your model, since you know what's the internal force as a function of y dot, you could now basically simulate the system. For the second approach, for that, I also find it very helpful and kind of intuitive to make cross sections of the surface. So for me, it feels most natural to look at, say, as a just look some cross sections of the surface.
let's say for more difficult things,
of the surface, you have your data, the gray and black dots.
has like
The fixed surface.
dynamic system which
For a very simple nothing observable and spelling here, you can really see the cubic shape. But say for more difficult things,
basically if you
so for example,
say reach a certain limit,
I have like a dynamic system which has
so
a
at a
strict
certain
stiffness, so it has
displacement,
like a
there
limit.
is a
So,
maximum displacement. Afterwards, it happens and there is no increase in the force.
so basically,
You
if
reach a
you
point and then basically
say
you
reach a certain limit, you have a maximum limit. Say I think it's
the
11
surface
volts.
in itself helps
So
you
at a
say
certain displacement, there is a maximum
what
displacement.
should you be
Afterwards,
looking
a
for.
slip happens, and there is no increase in the force. So it could be linear to a point, and then basically yields.
That on its own, you have a surface.
So,
you have the receiver, that's
The surface in itself helps you in, say, making a better educated guess at what should you be looking for.
This approach as well, it has another advantage that say those two sections
Uh,
of the surface
That on its own, you have a
say how
surface, you can
machine
use that to simulate the system. That's
how
approach one.
computer algorithm
Calling it from now with RFS.
decided okay, this
One
is how she looks. This is how she looks.
This approach as well, it has another advantage that say those cross sections,
So it basically
how
helps
the surface
guys
looks,
make a better
say
choice
how
for
machine
other
learning,
if
how the
you
machine learning
are
algorithm
using Python,
decided, okay, this is how it should look.
again,
That is how it should look. So would that be?
problem but by a regressor.
So it basically helps guys who making a better choice for the other two approaches I'm doing, which are using Python, which basically again use the RX tool and try to solve the quadratic problem via a regressor. In Python, the regressor is the sparse regressor. Basically, it's a least squares, but it has some modifications, so it prefers to kill more terms. So it's very similar to ASO. And the one I personally made, it's basically a custom RX, which is a lasso regressor, but I am giving it more, say, constraints, more preferences. So, for example, one of the preferences I could use is just, okay, I would like my average to be 0. If I know my average is around 0, okay, I would like it to be 0. To those two approaches, I would say I will give it a candidate library. So, for example, if you give it, say, a brute force, okay, give me a representation of the internal force within the system, within the pile, or whatever, as a combination of polynomials, say from y to y to k. That's a very brute force approach, and it's not really helpful because with higher order terms, you often get overflow. So what I would like to do is just do the RFS to guess some shapes. It's not 100% reliable. For example, it didn't really get the steep kind of shape, but it would be a good start to see where you go. So you pick some certain shapes, certain functions, based on literature, based on your surface, and feed them to the two approaches to give it specific values. Specifically for the pile and shelf frictions, I had some other, say, high order optimization. So instead of just optimizing the coefficient with different candidates and features, I would have, say, more implicit variables. So I would have say F1 have C times F4. C is to be optimized, but F1 itself has another parameter within it to be optimized. So basically, parameters that would hold the shape.
matter of say
Which are optimized after optimizing the outside coefficient. Something also noteworthy in the RFS approach, the matter of, say, converting the 3D surface into a y without relation uses shape polynomials. Those polynomials also have a very good, say, regression approach. So they are very good at, say, approximating functions. So even like, so if you want to approximate, say, a hyperbolic tangent or a slip kind of thing, you can't really do it with a Taylor approximation of like 10, 20. It's not really effective. But for shape, you could do it for 50. But say I get a reasonably close shape to a certain range. Again, I could also add constraints. So, for example, if I know my linear stiffness is positive, C positive, I could actually like set some bounds. say what should be my maximum, what should be my minimum. The file, that's not really reliable because I have no idea. I do have, say, some idea of what maximum, say, linear theories could be, but not really a range. So it wasn't really helpful. Just a note on even and odd terms. So when you use even terms, they are not really symmetric, or they are symmetric, but they also they tend to be destabilizing. Because say for a positive coefficient, they're also they're positive or negative. Velocity, for example, you had a term say y squared. If y is positive, it's positive. If y negative, it's negative. So it's destabilizing. Next is the matter of cutoff. So whenever you're optimizing, you often like tweak parameters. Say, okay, lambda or whatever. If it's 0, if it's 1, it determines how many of the terms do you cut off. So instead of that, I prefer to do it, say, slightly differently. See for each of my candidate terms, what's the magnitude, what's the maximum value for it. So instead of tweaking a parameter, I'll just look at it visually. Say, for example, the term, say, y3 is very small, I should kill it off that way. For me, that's more visual than, okay, then say, just tweak a parameter and see what happens to the fit. I would see what terms actually help and what terms don't really help. Yeah, again, so if you try to say, if you say vary the number of terms and see how the fit changes. So for example, if I'm looking at this R square value, I want it to be very to the bottom, so it goes to 1. So in
then say I have the combination of terms.
So, for example, 70 terms has a very similar fit as 15 terms. So those say 2 terms, and not really.
Both the R square value and RMC value.
Then say I have same combination of terms, combination of candidate terms, and kill them whatever is the coefficients. I would then compare them to the term force and see both the R square value and the RMC value to make sure that it's then I will also take a look at the residual. So, for example, if I see some harmonic in the residual, that means I have missed out some component of the response. I would also look at the QQ plot to see if it's normally distributed. That's also an assumption. So, for file driving, it doesn't have to be, but I think it's a good guess. I know it's normally distributed, but I made the noise for the benchmark. For validation, I just had a very simple multi-frequency force. Again, apply to my actual system, have a response, compare it against my derived formulation for the internal force. I would then compare them and see, okay, am I happy with it? So what do I look for? Again, just the statistics, RMSE, R2, and R square value. Like I would not really mind, say, a shift in phase if I maintain the same frequency and the same amplitude. I'm happy with the shift in phase. It doesn't really have to fit everything. Because if you maintain the amplitude and the frequency, I'm happy. If it's say 0.1 behind, again, you have the formulation. You compare the terra force, compare the response. Depending on what's your, say, criteria, what are you looking for? Are you looking to maximize velocity? Depends on your application. I would also, so for the benchmark cases, just to see does it work for all frequencies? For example, if I get a running pile model for a frequency of 30 Hertz, will it work at 60 Hertz or not? That's also
the file was not really free, so we have a file.
Now when it comes to the pile driving tests, like I mentioned, there are 4 tests. They differ in terms of what's the frequency and what's the lower end. So a pile when being driven was not really free. So you have a pile. It has a pneumatic hammer. It's basically shaken, so it keeps going up, but it's also controlled by a crane. So there is a loading rate and there is a frequency of loading. So I have 4 tests.
The problem is for the fast.
It's called 1, 2, 3, and 4. When I started, the idea was to use 3 tests to train and 1 test to validate. The problem is for the fast, for the test where there was a very fast lowering rate, I couldn't really make anything out. So it was basically, I couldn't really identify anything. So when I used, say, the slow test, and say validate it against the other slow test, it's okay. When I use the fast test, I don't get itself, and I don't get the other fast test. So I focused mainly on test 1 and test 3. So for the test itself, it was very simple. So you had strain gauges at the top, strain gauges at the bottom. You had measurements of the force at the top, the excitation force, the friction force. You had accelerometer, so you know the acceleration. So basically, you know everything. You can get the force in the tip, force in the shaft. So screen friction and bearing.
Again, like I mentioned, based on the
it's basically the same as benchmark cases, but you have 2 components for the internal force, which is the shaft friction and the force. And again, like I mentioned, based on the historical samples, we made again educated guess into what difference may suit the response. Just a small comment, say for the tip force, it's of course asymmetric. If you're say taking out the pile, it's not really effective. So it's on the left hand side, it doesn't really affect you that much. So again, starting with data, I would use that to train the system. I think it's just nice to visualize the space. So the loading cycles, the shaft, a good fit in terms of the magnitude. Again, for the tip, I would say get a good fit in terms of the magnitude. So the force, I just compare the areas. So say, for example, 1800 to 1800. It seems like good in terms of magnitude, but they have like different shapes. Okay. So clear in that. So between is my target. Say I would get say different shapes that mimic the force or magnitude to a degree. Okay? So which one is correct? That should be done by validation. But before validation, I just basically took my formulations and substituted the measurements, so velocity displacement for other tests. So for me, that sounds good. They look good. That's just by directly substituting the velocity and displacement to my formulas, shift and friction and then bearing. The next step was for those. Of course, I had a list of test fits. Then I went into validation, which is basically using test 1 to fit the system. Then I would use test 3 to validate it. So I use the force from test 3 to measure it. The problem is my best fitting equations are not really stable. So I can't really analyze it again. I can't really get a stable solution for it. So my numerical solvers don't really work. Even after we can parameters, using other approaches, say RK45, PDF, Adams, different approaches for the IDP solvers. So I had like a couple models that actually worked, which were not really the best fitting models in terms of fit, like if you try to fit the formula, that look nice, but they don't really simulate, which that's useless. So I had lesser fitting ones, so a polar RMSE, a polar RBQ value. So in terms of shaft force, I managed to validate the maximum force to a degree, so I'm kind of happy with it. The component is way off, but the RMSE is good at that. However, the tip force is not. So my best guess is I haven't really managed to get the tip. Of course, corrupt the shaft force, because I basically add up the formulations for the shaft and the tip together. If the shaft is okay, it looks nicer. But if the tip is not, so any error in the tip, of course, transitions to the shaft. Increase here is a decrease here. So as a measure of my results, you can actually identify a dynamic system with a very limited set of data. And I got some insights to the dynamics, the nonlinear dynamics of some systems, and a bit of nonlinear feature engineering. However, I would not really manage to build a functional surrogate model. So you can't really simulate new responses to validate with other tests.
To see how say the terms evolve in time. For example, if my
What are my main conclusions? A global fit is needed. So one of the things I thought about, I would say, take my signal, sigma 2, sigma 2, sigma 3, and try to fit system here. See how say the terms evolve in time. So for example, if my linear status is a goal up linearly is like some condition with like energy or whatever, how does it change? How does it work? You can't really do segments because you basically you get the best fit for that segment, but it doesn't really have to correlate with the other one. So you have to fit the entire signal. So what I did was just basically take a segment. Okay, I would take those terms, I would refit them, push it along a signal. So it's not a matter of segments, you have to do it globally.
If you do too much of a candidate library,
using a candidate library, if of course superior. So instead of just throwing whatever, just try to see what's optimized from the term first surface. This might be a good guess. Throw it in, but not everything. If you do too much of a candidate library, it's basically useless. Even if like if a system, I know it's a cubic, but if you throw at it so much, it doesn't really get the cubic because it tries to combine everything you have to fit your force. So, and finally, the approach they look promising in terms of capturing the solid reactions, but at the moment that's not that wasn't really achieved. But I do think it's possible.
Even like it's not really so straightforward progression, you can do it. For example, for scale, it's
finally, just to I guess a quick look back at the research questions. One, of course, I can candidate for a simple system. Even like if it's say not really so straightforward or relationship, you can do it. So for example, for sleep, it's basically going from 0 to 1 very abruptly, but that can still be managed, especially by championship or moment.
Choose the candidate library.
How is the identification process physically formed? So the moment you formulate the model, that's basically the first physics you add. So when you know that it's mass acceleration, it's greater instead of force, that's the first thing. But when you choose the candidate libraries, that's more physics added into it. Sorry. The top one is the right, which methods are best for the research problem. That's not really conclusive. I have, say, running models, but none of them have a good method. So I can't really say anything about the methods. But in terms of the benchmark cases, the RFS seems to be the worst in terms of stability. Like even for simple system, it can be unstable. Basically, I'm getting like a long expression for a surface that's a shape that's based on machine learning. So it doesn't really have to be physical. So it can have some abrupt points here and there. Just for the sake of figure. Finally, what criteria would verify the system's fidelity to the actual physics? Again, cross-validation. You take a test you haven't taken before, try to validate to look at both the R square and the RMSE values. R square is used to represent the shape, RMSE is for magnitude. So for example, if I'm looking at, say, at fatigue, I'm interested more in the shape, so the number of cycles, whatever. If I'm interested more in, say, file driving, I would say more about the magnitude, other applications. Finally, the last thing is about time invariability. So I've started with assuming that my system doesn't really evolve in time, which shouldn't be that great of assumption for pile driving. My main idea was I would just do it time invariantly and then add time invariant components. Assuming those are not really too major that I could say, okay, this is a good I think that may have been the issue. And if I say maybe started earlier with that would have helped before. I think that's it. Thank you for your time.
To come up with questions that can be on the details or that can be also.
We would love to ask you things, but we came from like a very different background. You know that.
Even better sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a layman here on this topic, but why would you say that your model works for the slow lowering rate, but not for the fast one?
So a good case would be that, say, the dynamics of the problem would be evolving too much in time that you are not really capturing. So I've also played around, say, with, say, my sampling time. So it's not really a matter of, okay, do I have enough of a
A good case would be that, say, the dynamics of the problem would be evolving too much in time that you are not really capturing it.
for the
So
entire
I've also played around, say, with, say, my sampling time. So it was not really a matter of, okay, do I have enough of a time element? Because I think that's enough. But it's probably that the dynamics of the problems are varying too much. Say that the time I've took for the entire, say, experience to run was not really enough for you to reach like a steady state. So I cannot really see anything about it. It was
even
too
like
quick
for a very wide class, I
for
would say
anything
I would
steady to
try
be
to
ignored.
capture the shape and not the maximum amplitude, but it's still
I
doable.
don't think so.
So if I don't get anything at all, that means that
Again,
it's
like I'll
not
try
really
with the benchmark case to
and there are
specify
some
how,
situations to say,
even like for a very wide
certain
time, I would say I would kind of capture the shape, but not the maximum amplitude, but it's still doable. So if I don't get anything at all, for me, it means it's not really the sampling time. And there are some, say, crude measures to say for a certain frequency of response, I have, say, a specific
basically like the
sampling time.
I generally start from zero, trying to like have some or address some transient stage, or say there's a very fluctuating response that not actually physical, but it's just basically the initiate.
Basically, like with the test data, I generally start from zero, kind of like have some some transient stage, or say there is a very fluctuating response that's not actually physical, but it's just basically the initiate. It can be physical, but it's basically the initiation of the motion. For me, I'm interested on what's the global behavior, and if I don't know exactly what happens at the start, I'm still happy.
X-axis you have the time. So if you have fluctuations, what you want to see is that a steady trend or a steady in time or the fluctuations doesn't matter.
Yes.
Okay,
Maybe you give your definition, either mathematical or physical, or what you mean steady state response to a system that evolves.
Yeah.
That's what is the definition?
Maybe for a simple data system, you have say a specimen per time. You have sometimes it happens to be manual, so you have some noise. Then we say get a steady state. So in terms of not having too much of fluctuation, say but
Maybe for a simple, say,
on this
dynamic
case,
system, you
more
have
dynamic. So
say
for this
specimen per
dynamics, so
time.
the
You
moment
have
you start
sometimes it
running,
happens numerically, so you
is
have
basically
some
non-resistant
noise. Then you
resistance.
would say get a steady state. So in
So
terms
for
of
me, I would say
not
something
having
like
too
this.
much of a
If it's
fluctuation, say,
physical, I
but
wouldn't care
say
about too
from
much,
this
but
case, it's
for
more
this,
numerical.
in terms of
For the case of
very
car
bad
driving, so the moment you
time
start driving,
compared to the entire process.
there is basically no resistance at the surface,
What's the lower
or it's
behavior?
almost loose.
All the
So
lower
for me, I
behavior.
would expect something like
I can
this,
simply
even if it's
ignore
physical. I wouldn't care about it too much, but because it's in terms of time, it's not really that much of time from the compared to the entire process. What I'm interested in, say, what's the global behavior what does the global behavior look like, and I can basically ignore that start.
About the objective function. Do you think
Yeah,
you
kinda,
could
yeah.
different objective function rather than the R square of the RMC, and maybe you could get, for example, better high value or lower value?
Yeah, actually also Telegram with a bit function, so using the square itself is not really helpful. What the Telegram is say adding some penalties, so maybe because I'm interested in what matching the shape and the force. So sometimes I do say RC plus the
I
penalty
actually
or
also played around with objective function, so
say
using the R square itself is not really helpful.
add some
What I played
penalty,
around with is say adding some penalties,
also add some
so
penalties,
maybe
say
because I'm interested in both matching the
so
shape and the
maybe
force magnitude,
I'd
so
say
sometimes I do say
three
the RMSE plus a
my
penalty of
simulation, and that
say
would
if the average is not zero, I want it
add
to be
penalty
zero.
for that,
So I
to
would
help
add some
moving away from
penalty
that.
to move it from
So
that.
I did play
I
around
can
with
also add some
different
penalties,
criteria,
say
but
to the
I
number of
needed
peaks.
so
So
matching
in a
the
certain T, I had say 3 peaks. In my simulation, I got 2. So I could add a penalty for that to help move it away from that. So I did play around with different criteria, but anything that's about matching the magnitude, I think it would work best.
There's uncertainty, right? Then you made a lot of best guesses, so you add a lot of uncertainty in your analysis. So how much you are accurate about these findings in terms of this uncertainty that you made?
So in terms of when I say best case, so I have say a specific range. So the problem itself is not really unique. So for example, if I want to present some kind of yield, I would use a parabolic tangent.
So in terms of when I say best guess, so I have say a specific range. So the problem itself is not really unique. So, for example, if I want to present some kind of field, I could use a hyperbolic tangent to represent this. I could use some logarithmic tangent. It's not really unique. So when I say best guess, anything that represents my stress strain or whatever kind of relationship, for me, if it gets me the same response, I'm happy. So when I say best guess, I don't really care about say the exact formula of the function itself. And if it gives me a good response, a good validation, built into the system, I'm happy.
Response. So what I try to do is fit in test one and flip test three. If I simulate in test three and I get a good response, I don't really care what this function is.
No, like if you could validate the model, say using a different data set and it gives you a good response. So what I try to do is fit using test one and flip test three. If I simulate using test three and I get a good response, I don't really care what this function is, what's a tangent, logarithm, or whatever. As long as it gives me a good response, that's fine. In reality, there's nothing like actually, or it's actually logarithmic, because math is basically our way, the best way we have to represent physics. So if this function works, I don't care about the rest. It doesn't have to be the actual best fitting function, but if you get me a good
Even
response,
say if my validation worked, I would just be would have say some certainty about this specific test, this specific part, this specific one. Instead of say to find a bigger part test.
no, of course. So even if say if my validation worked, I would just I would have say some certainty about this specific test, this specific part, this specific SAM. The next stage will say to find a bigger part test and actually do the same process on that.
Very good question, by the way.
I did not feel them.
So they're not, I don't know if it's studied. Sport. No more questions, then the committee has not
I
started.
did not feed them the questions.
Exactly. Maybe,
Thank you very much for your very nice presentation. It was a pleasure working with you, and quite a lot of questions from all parts throughout the case, not the same today. Maybe I'll start with either one, or shorter. You have one in the conclusion that you say, I'm not exactly sure about the identification methods, which ones are the best. I think I will ask you a question that will actually throw out a big set of these methods. Which methods from the machine learning community that will actually study specific one, neural networks, which is actually the one the majority use nowadays, at least in terms of numbers. Would that be a method that you could apply this from?
I don't like it. Well, in terms of neural networks, you will say you specify some hyperparameters. You pick those, that helps you respond. For me, I don't like that because I feel like as an engineer, I lost my sense of control. So
For me, I don't like it. Because in terms of neural networks, you say you specify some hyperparameters, you pick those, that affects your response. For me, I don't like that because I feel like as an engineer, I lost my sense of control. So
again, I don't like it because I don't have control.
for this specific, because it's basically a regression problem to minimize the difference, so you could actually use it. And in terms of the response first service, I've actually used the multiple layer perceptron neural networks for fitting the surface. But again, I don't like it because I don't have control into it and I can't add more physics into it.
Okay. And
it also needs a lot of data, of course, as a neural network, because it's basically blind. You feed it. Yeah.
if somebody would come with a pure mathematical background, they would tell you that no matter what math you have, expanded in polynomial terms, it's absolutely fine. In practice, first, did you see that working in the problem, yes or no, and what would you think is missing?
Okay, so I'm actually trying the exact same thing. So I have like a halfway tangent, have a wheel, and a shift function, and try to approximate that using polynomials. And it's up to say a degree of 7, 8, 10. It's either doesn't really.
So I've actually tried the exact same thing. So I had like a halfway tangent type of wheel. Kind of a shift function. I try to approximate that using polynomials. Just up to say a degree of 7, 8, 10. It's either doesn't really fit well, or it's actually unstable,
And
So
again,
it's
high
very
order
problematic.
terms are problematic.
So it's like the thing with the Taylor series. If you want to get a Taylor series of hyperbolic tangent, you need like lots and lots of terms, too many for you to be able to conclusively eliminate some of them. And again, high order terms are problematic because they tend to overflow.
More degrees of freedom and some other issues like having those plastic elements, which for this problem tend to be quite difficult. Why do we think that was like practically what we were missing to do that?
Yeah, of course, I had considered expanding the problem, but for me, that doesn't really help. So if you increase the complexity of your model, before say, so for me, because the model was very stiff, I think the real freedom was a very good fit.
Yeah, of course. I had considered expanding the problem, but for me, it doesn't really help. So if you increase the complexity of your model before say, so for me, because the pilot was very stiff, I think the real freedom was a very good fit. It should immediately get like a good response. So once I get that, then I could say continue on to more elements, different approaches, some elastic lines, some slider elements like we discussed. But for me, don't think the problem will be solved if you make the model more complex.
For example, have a class, I'd say strain gauge at the bottom. If I say more strain gauge along element, do more elements, because I have more measurements at each point. It's actually, let's see the variation of the.
So, for example, since I have the pile, I'd say strain gauge at the top, at the bottom. If I had say more strain gauges along the element, I could do more elements because I have more measurements at each point. I could actually like see the variation of the skin friction along the height and so on.
And they ask, okay, very nice on the framework, very nice fit in the end, but this problem looks like there seems to be a freedom. With some brute force or some creativity, somebody may reach similar results. What would be your argument in favor of such an approach? So what would they not get? Looking further, even from your piece, from the work that you did, why would you be arguing to something like such a framework?
For me, like the combining the RFS with a sparse relation or different kind of relation, I think that's good because the concept of being more physics involved helps to reach solution. So for example, somebody might get lucky and get say the right type of function. Okay, that lucky.
For me, like the combining the RFS with sparse relation or different kind of relation, I think that's good because the concept of being more physics informed helps you reach a solution. So for example, somebody might get lucky and get say the right type of function. Okay, I got it, but the chances of being lucky are not really that great in such a let's say a complex problem. So being more informed, based on first surface, seeing how it looks. So using the brute force machine learning there to see what are possible guesses, and then using those into the regress. I think that would be basically if it's about luck, you have more of a chance.
I have one question about on the previous slide of that. You write successful identification of nonlinear dynamics in simple systems with limited data is possible. Are there any constraints on the data? For example, if I have a nonlinear system which characterized by bifurcation, is it always possible to identify it? Or are there certain aspects in the data you have?
This is some general criteria for the data. It has to be representative. So if you're missing cycles, that's not really a good idea. But in terms of say bifurcation, one of the things I consider is usually say these one functions. So whenever there is say an approach change,
some general criteria for the data. It has to be representative. So if you're missing cycles, that's not really a good idea. But in terms of say bifurcation, one of the things I've considered is using say piecewise functions. So whenever there is say an abrupt change, you can actually use say if one function, say 1 millimeter, say if I'm talking say displacement, one not whatever, if they say there is some kind of relation that say evolves in time, it abruptly changes. It's not really a smooth transition, say such a bifurcation or whatever. It doesn't like that. So in terms of numerical solves, they don't like piecewise approximations. However, again, when I mentioned the Chebyshev polynomials, even such say an abrupt change, say even if it's say say it jumps say
So doing,
here,
say, a very
for the
harsh
reason.
change,
Even such a difficult shape can actually be approximated with
instead
Chebyshev
of
polynomials,
just
so in terms of
jumps,
something like this.
doing it
So
brute
you don't
force,
really get the exact shape,
just
but you get a very good representation. So doing, say, a very harsh change, very like a bifurcation of different states or just basically jumps, doing it brute force polynomials, no. Doing it with Chebyshev polynomials, yes.
And if you don't know the system, how do you insert that ever representative and then going step further, how is that ever better than the pure combination?
how do you know it's represented? Okay, based on the measurements, say you could go to the frequency domain and see, okay, my response goes from say 0 to 100 hertz. Based on say what's my maximum frequency, I would say what would be a good sampling time.
How do you know if it's
And,
representative?
a wide range of frequency to the
Okay,
smallest
based on your
time,
measurements, say you could go to the frequency
this would
domain
be a
and
good
see, okay, my response
in
goes from
terms
say
of just
0 to
sampling time.
100
Then you
hertz.
have the
Based
issue,
on
okay,
say
I'm
what's
say
my
I'm
maximum
doing
frequency, I
tests
could
in the
say
lab,
what would
that
be a
be
good
represented
sampling time.
in real life, so
Have a wide range of frequency to get the smallest sampling time. Okay, this
you're
would be
basically as
representative
confident as your
in terms of just
statistics.
sampling
So
time.
you drive
Then
say
you would have the
100
issue, okay, say I'm doing a pilot test in the lab. Would that be representative of actual real life?
I would
Say when
rather
you're
you
gonna take
actually do like
whatever?
a,
No,
full
you will not
size
really
part
be
test and I did have this on
you're basically as
So
confident
my idea is not just getting
as
say
your
a
test is.
bottle
So if you
that's
drive, say, 5 meters and have
just about
5
okay,
meters
doing
in
say a
the
test,
site, okay, you'll be happy.
some test,
If you say it's hundreds,
and identify
I would
that.
rather you actually do like a full-size pilot test and identify based on those. So my idea is not just getting, say, a model that's gonna work everywhere. It's just about, okay, using, say, a test, maybe just one test, two tests,
You
and
said
identify that.
amplitude and frequency, that's good. And I also said you were studying something about amplitude with why is it good to have an amplitude and frequency. I was imagining the two of us being on the ship. I'm blindfolded from the bow and I have to jump to another ship. And you have your system running and you identify the motion of two vessels and you say, I got the amplitude and frequency high, you can jump now. You can imagine that I'm a little bit concerned about the phase being incorrect. Why is it that you can ignore the phase when you think about power running?
Okay, so what's my goal, say, on the hardware model? See, okay, what kind of frequency, what kind of amplitude gives me, say, more resonance in terms of soil. So the more the soil responds to the frequency, basically the more the time and
So
size.
what's my goal, say, from the pile driving model? See, okay, what kind of frequency, what kind of amplitude gives
What
me,
kind
say,
of frequency, what kind
more
of
resonance
amplitude
in terms of soil.
gives
So
me
the more the soil
this is
responds to the
driving.
frequency,
In terms of
basically the more
phase,
the pile
power
slides
kilowatts.
in. So it's
For
more
me,
efficient
what's
to
the
get,
total energy?
say,
I'm applying, that's
what kind of
cash.
frequency, what kind of amplitude
This for me
in
doesn't
terms
really
of
matter
force
much.
gives
I'm
me
also around 50 seconds. Because for me, I
the
don't really
easiest
care about
phase
say the
driving. In terms
momentarily
of
what is
phase,
the
why would I
time
care about
momentarily.
this? So for me, it's what's the total energy
For this problem, I
I'm
think
applying.
the
That's
phase is not that
cash.
important.
Phase for me doesn't really matter that much. If I'm off, say, by 1 to 2 seconds, because for me, I don't really care about, say, the momentarily, where is the pile momentarily, but say, what's the total energy needed for the pile. That's for me, for this model, I think phase is not as important.
I can imagine that if I try to hammer something in and I start to do it in the wrong phase at some point, then it just doesn't
How so?
work.
Sorry.
And because my phase is
Okay, yeah. So
To me, that sounds kind of strange.
So maybe more direct question is which answer you want to reach it to your amplitude is enough. Because certainly for the whole drive, it may not be enough. I
for
mean,
me, that sounds kind of strange.
a few seconds having six
Yeah.
phase, maybe half an hour more to drive the car. So you understand what I'm saying? So which question you're happy with answering only with amplitude?
No, on every time frequency. So
Yeah, amplitude.
yeah,
Might be worse.
like if I get the so it's if you're just comparing risk to response, it's just shifting in time. I don't think it will be shifting in time by that kind of amount.
No, not all. I mean, amplitude and frequency. So yeah, of course. Like if I get so if you're just comparing this to response, it's just shifting in time. I don't think it will be shifted in time by that kind of amount.
Oh, we would actually take the time that's energy, that's cost.
Mhm.
No,
Okay, the first is maybe high harmonics. So if you
How long
want
would the
to
reaction take to pile
must
that's
say
energy, that's cost?
Because the cosine of omega plus. So that plus my issue.
Okay, if you're talking third phase, higher harmonics, or if you're ground phase, you might be say missing out some of the higher harmonics. For example, if you're talking say cosine of omega plus, so that plus might be an issue. But what I'm saying, if I just get the right response, just shifted in time, that's what I'm matter.
And then you say that the single degree freedom representation is sufficient, then you said it's sufficient because the file is defined within the file of the degree. So, for me, I would expect a little bit more advanced model if I'm identifying files
But I'm not.
line. And so
What I will do, so I have say one single element, say string for fit, and just say one single string for the friction. So I have an expression for that string damper or for the element. For here,
What I will do, so I have say one single element, say it's called just a spring. Say single spring for the friction. So I have an expression for that spring damper or the element. For here, for me that's the best starting point, because then I can just basically replicate this one. So if I had say another strain gauge at different points, I would just copy that element, because I would expect it kind of to be the same, even if of course the friction would vary over the length. But just having that basic element, that I think would be a progress.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
So that it's the best for me. It's the best start.
what is your most unexpected finding?
Yeah.
One thing that you said that you didn't know it before, that's not in terms of that, but you expected and you didn't.
Yeah, I think it's again a matter of having segments. So my idea was say when the plugin say there will be some say sign softening, kind of very slightly, so something that evolves in time. So just the matter that I could really just segment my response and
I
start.
think it's again the matter of having segments. So my main idea was say when you're timing, say there will be some say sign of softening, kind of maybe slightly, so something that evolves in time. So just the matter that I couldn't really just segment my response and start just basically building them up, say fitting this segment with this segment, and trying to basically patch them together. See, for example, does the thickness change? Does it increase, decrease? The fact that I couldn't do that, that was unexpected to me, I think.
I didn't get an answer to the question of.
Kind of see something evolving in time, actually evolving in time. Say it's a specific function, a specific say thickness, whatever that changes directly with time.
So the initial stage when the state of file is just starting to break the ground, it is very small at the start. If I'm measuring from that point, I would say get something very strange over here, which actually seems signal.
Okay, so
It's physical.
the initial stage when they say the pile is just starting to break the ground, very much soil at the start. If I'm measuring from that point, I would say get something very strange over here, which I actually see the signal. Yeah, it's physical because it's say the penetration stage. But for me, I don't care about it because it's just gonna complicate my say my system, and it's not globally controlling. So it doesn't really affect say my total energy, total time. So if I'm just starting from here, I get a clearer signal, less of a complex expression.
No, that's clear. In that question I have never understood is why do you need to set the, if you do a system, right? For here you have single system, that's a great system. It's okay in this case, right?
Of course, yeah.
For purposes, and then you have mass times acceleration plus some external forces, right? Forces minus some internal forces. And for some reason you separate deep and subtle systems. Why do you do that?
First, we have the set form, so we have two strain gauges, so we might as well use them. This first thing. Secondly, for me to be able to say add more elements, so I need to say to get the total different force, so distance from shaft.
First, we have the strength problem, so we have strength gauges, so we might as well use that. Secondly, for me to be able to say add more elements, so I need to say to get the double upper force, so resistance from shaft and tip. So I don't really have to in my actual final model. I do combine them and I simulate that. But for me, during the identification, I try to do it separately, and then afterwards, I would say try to refine that.
I mean, you could identify directly with
Like I do know, like they would rely on each other. Yeah.
one force, describe like this, and this is one force, and describe like this. Don't you restrict it somehow? You just say adjust our force, and you put nothing just put the terms. I mean, where do this interplay change between what you define based on physics?
So it kind of assumes independence between the shaft and the slip and the tip forces.
Right. How do you come to the conclusion that this is independent? For me, I don't know.
No, I do know that is independent. So for example, say at some point they
So it kind of assumes independence between the shaft and the tip forces.
Is basically sliding, right? So depending on the magnitude of the shaft.
No, I do know they are definitely independent. So for example, say if at some point there's some kind of sliding of the soil, there will be an additional the soil is basically sliding along. So depending on the magnitude of the shaft friction, this would either be zero, increase, decrease. They are dependent. However, say if I'm going to convert this model to an actual model, so a bigger pie, I do need separate elements to represent slip friction and separate elements to represent the tip forces. So I could go either way. I could combine them, but if I combine them and get a running model, I can't go anywhere from there. I have the global force, but that only works when, say, at this size of the pie, where it's very rigid, it has friction and tip force to this amount. If it's longer, and of course there will be.
The ground truth would be to measure really the resistance. You don't do that, right?
No. Yeah.
For me, it makes sometimes no sense to separate things if you don't know the ground truth.
Yeah.
But I do understand that the technical people would like to do it and some others. No, it's good and great at some questions, but I think we covered most of them right to the discussion. Any questions from the public that is heard it? Yes,
yes, so maybe one question related to this fire model. I know that there are some works related to some people using finite element or discrete element of subsystem. What's the advantage of using your average compared to those systems?
So if you build a hydrogen model, say soil pile, half space, whatever, you have say soil elements, you have say some relationships. Most of the hydrogen software are available, say in the field.
So if you build a finite element model, say soil piles, half space, whatever, you have say soil elements with say some relationships. Most of the hydrogen software available in the field are basically elastic. So if you do this model, if the pile is here, it will never really penetrate because the model is entirely elastic. So what you do really need an actual soil model that actually deforms. So it's kind of like more fluid-like, so it deforms, it remembers. So the model itself is not really publicly available. So you have to build your own model based on research in terms of soil dynamics. So that's also does not really cover driving. It's mostly the most of the literature on geotechnics is about earthquakes, and basically. So it's not really they don't have that much data to build an actual model of the dynamics. So yeah.
It's possible, right?
Yeah.
It's computationally expensive, right? You need normally for 10 minutes of pipeline and 10 months of
How long does it? Yeah, of course.
No more questions. We to discuss it. And we'll come back in about.
تكلم كده شرفتوني ما عادش تعبتك تسلم الله يسلمك
لو لازم يشوف لك دكتوراه يا عزيزي
يا اخي شرف والله اديك العافيه
يا شباب كيف عاملين؟
السلام عليكم دكتور يا اخوانك
برضه يا حاجة قراية حاجة. هو زي فيك كورس شغل بتاع انت التخصص بتاعك اساسا
هندسة مدنية تصميم إنشائي.
يعني مناسب كونستراكشن.
أي مثلا كونستراكشن انجينيرنج. كونستراكشن انجينيرنج إنشائي، هندسة إنشائية، تصميم ستيل خرساء، تحليل وتصميم يعني تحليل إنشائي، شغل الميكانيكس الفورس المومنت الشير بس ده سويل يعني ولا الإنشاء نفسه. لا 15 لا يس انه احسن بس بدون ناس بهرب احسن ناس
احسن السي انا ما فاهم اي شيء لكن
ايوه اتكلمت انا.
Now, we will continue the to announce the grade. So in principle, I would like to give some information about how we reach the final grade, because that's important. You will see it as well. We discussed a few things. We discussed the science, scientific contribution, right? That's one very important criterion. And the quality of that product scientifically, well, the quality of that product in terms of reporting, that's very important. The independence and the behavioral competences of the candidate, that's also important to discuss. And the defense solution. These are the 5 blocks of assessment which we consider. And as I said, anything between 6 and 10 is to be avoided. Right? 10 is the highest, right? I don't remember anything for 10, at least it's graduated with me. Myself was. So that's beyond what the teachers know. That's very high. And 6 is really very new, right? Normally 6 we just this is basically we are happy to do this. That's the 6 and the 10, so these are the really extremes, and like any distribution of feeding curve, it's outliers. So anything between 7, 8, and 9 is possible to you. You did a very, very high level work, you know that, in terms of scientific contribution, in terms of the deliverables, also in terms of going a step further in that domain, right? You explained a few things today, but in fact, you don't know what to explain, right? So that will be part of very high. And a little bit the management of the project and the reporting, you know, yourself, and so on. But in principle, that could have been better, right? Of presentation, in terms of style, in terms of reporting. So various could be better. Given all these factors, taking all these factors into consideration, we have decided to award you with a final grade of 8.0. The moment the crowd group now, the moment of truth, so you gotta smile as well. We are in the Netherlands, so it has to sign also the tax. Congratulations. Keep track of it, we give the diploma only once. Congratulations again. I think conversation is officially closed. You are free also to share your thoughts if you like or whatever.
Thanks everyone for being here. Thank you for being so supportive to stay externally. Also thank our labels. And also thank you, Harry, for your first feedback. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's basically it. Thank you.
Congratulations.
We need one more. All right. 3, 2, 1. Now more enthusiasm. One more. 3, 2, 1.
Everybody is super cool.
But you don't have the name of this team thing. So we have a musical number. Guys, women. No.
You want to start or not?
Okay, just smile. Okay, let me take one. Yeah. Yay! Very good, very good.
Maybe you want some flowers as well?
Maybe extra.
We hope that you can photo.
Nice.
All right.
Yes, very nice.
3, 2, 1.
Don't have to wait a bit.
All right. Be more enthusiastic. 3, 2, 1.
Nice.
Very good, very good.
Congrats. Very hard. All right. That's better. Nice. All right. 3, 2, 1. Nice. You're just running away. All right. 3, 2, 1. Nice. So what are you going to do now? Perfect choice. Oh, yes, the eyes open. Yes, the eyes open. Can everyone try to do that as much? This border. Let's do that. Is this nicer?
I'll play over. They have kept it open.
All right.
Baker? Yeah.
All right, everybody, make sure that you can see my lens. If you can see my lens, I can see you. So, all right, 3, 2, 1. Nice. This is the simple one. Now we're going to do a more enthusiastic one. All right, what are we going to do? We're going to be happy. Arms, jump. All right, 3, 2, 1. Nice. One more you can do, but you can do better. 1, 3, 2, 1. Cool. All right, awesome. Thank you.
That looks terrible. That looks terrible. Yeah.
Every time I fix the leg, it's the first time.
Right. All right, give me a very big smile. 3, 2, 1. This one is big. All right, 3, 2, 1. A lot of things.
What are you doing?
هذه مع زمان. مش هذا عندك انت؟
You can follow the magic just to put it in there. Yeah. Okay. So you can arrive in before the match. Yeah.
Because, yeah, it was
Well, I guess I want to say that.
Why would they put players?
But you were also your. Yeah.
Now you know what we say.
في بلان بتاعتين ان احنا نطلع وكده، لكن قالوا عندك تليفون معنا
هو غالبا نص ساعة
ونطلع نمشي
ما عندي مشكلة
لما
خلاص نحور
Before it go like
السلام عليكم. شباب سامعني؟ يا شيخ النور السلام عليكم. رغودة.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. طيب.
الأسرة الكريمة السلام عليكم وعشت بخير.
عليكم السلام مرحبا بك.
لحظة.
الو
النور السلام بس لحظة.
مرحبا. طيب هاي دقيقة أنا معك.
سامعني؟
طيب ايوه سامعك.
الحمد لله مالك الحمد لله.
موفق ان شاء الله ربي بالتوفيق ان شاء الله.
اللهم امين امين لك ان شاء الله. سلم على الجماعة
ان شاء الله يعني.
أقوى الأولاد إن شاء الله.
ان شاء الله ان شاء الله مبروك ان شاء الله.
الله يبارك فيك يا أخي تسلم كثير يا أخي ما قصرت. لو في قاعد بدي نسلم عليهم. السلام عليكم. كيفك يا أخي؟
كيف يلا كويس
الحمد لله يا مان.
يا رب.
الله يبارك فيك يا أخي.
العافية الله يبارك فيك.
تسلم كثير يا أخي.
تمام
الحمد لله.
الله يسلمك. الله يبارك فيك. خلاص انتهت.
الحمد لله خلصت هاي.
الحمد لله على السلامة. الله يبارك فيك.
تسلم
بالتوفيق يا رب. الله يبارك فيك.
ناس بين قاعدين ولا حالين ولا وين؟
تسليم أهلين.
حاجة تسليم. السلام عليكم يا أخي.
وعليكم السلام.
كيف يا أخي إن شاء الله؟
مبروك.
الله يبارك فيك يا أخي. تسلم يا أخي. هايك شيخ رغودة.
ربنا يوفقك ان شاء الله. طيب ان شاء الله يا اخي.
اللهم امين.
اقرا
حبوب رغد كيف عامله يا اخي؟ اهدي كيف عامله يا اخي؟
هات العشاء.
يا رغد بس لحظه سلم على الجماعه دي وارجع لك تمام؟ باشمهندس بشرى، السلام عليكم.
السلام ورحمة.
باشمهندس كيف يا اخي؟ ان شاء الله بصحة وعافية يا اخي، شرفتنا يا اخي.
ألف مبروك يا طيب يا أخي.
الله يبارك فيك يا اخي، تسلم.
وربنا يهديك ويمتعك بالصحة والعافية يا أخي.
تسلم كثير يا اخي.
والتهاني يا أخي موصولة للوالدة فاطمة وللأخوات يا أخي تسنيم ودكتورة إيثار وللأخ لابننا برضو عبد العزيز وللأعمام بشير والهادي ولكل الأسرة الكريمة ولكل أهل الأصم ولكل آل مالك.
يصل ان شاء الله.
ربنا يا أخي يوفقك دائما ويجعلك دائما يا أخي خير سند للأسرة.
تسلم كثير
وعلى
يا
الناس
اخي.
لك يا أخي الدكتوراه وفوق الدكتوراه، وتقبل يا أخي تهاني كل قطاع الاتصالات.
تسلم كثير يا اخي، ما قصرت
نحن
معنا.
نكون ممثلين 3 أو 4 لكم هايل، يعني طيف واسع جدا جدا من الزملاء لاخونا العزيز الباشمهندس عثمان الطيب مالك. نتمنى نكون
ان شاء الله اهل وحبايب.
حضور بالانابه عنه، يعني نتمنى نكون حضور بالانابه عنه.
اللهم امين. تسلم كثير يا اخي، شرفتنا. استاذن
الله يقويك.
تسلم كثير. تسلم.
وعليكم
أستاذ
السلام ورحمة
تياني.
الله.
عليكم السلام والرحمة يا أخي.
طيب إن شاء الله أنت كويس.
الله يبارك يا أخي، شرفنا بحضورك يا أخي. تسلم كثير.
ألف مبروك والله يا ابني، والله شرفته والله.
الله يبارك فيك يا أخي، تسلم كثير.
الماجستير عقبال الدكتوراه إن شاء الله، وإن شاء الله
اللهم آمين آمين، وبال أولادك إن شاء الله. تسلم كثير يا أخي.
يعني زي ما يقولوا خلف لخير سلف. ربنا إن شاء الله يوفقك تمسك درب
اللهم
أبوك.
آمين آمين.
والله يبارك فيك، وتحياتنا لكل الأسرة.
لا يصل إن شاء الله. سلم على
أخوتنا فاطمة والجماعة إن شاء الله، كل الأسرة الكريمة. الحمد لله رب العالمين. ألف مبروك.
تسلم كثير ما قصرت.
النتيجة طلعت اجتازوها خلاص.
تمام من 10 الحمد
لله. ألف مبروك. ألف مبروك.
الله يبارك فيك يا أخي. تسلم كثير.
الحمد لله، إن شاء الله ربنا يلاقينا في ساعة خير يعني.
تسلم يا أخي ما قصرت.
الله يبارك فيك، جزاك الله خير. شكرا.
شيخ محمد السلام عليكم.
اهلا، حياك الله باشمهندس، اخبارك؟
الحمد لله والله يا اخي رايق.
الف مبروك. شفت خالك الشايب ده ولا ما شفته؟
انتهيت خلاص، انتهيت خلاص.
والله زمننا ولا اخبارك ان شاء الله طيب؟
لا كله صبغه بس الحين صبغه، هو زوجي الثاني ما في مشكله ان شاء الله.
بالله يا اخي يا جماعه، هو الشيء ده مراقبه، اعمل حسابك. المسألة دي فيها مراقبة. والله ألف مبروك يا أخي، فرحنا لك شديد والله. حاجة تعجيل والله. إن شاء الله ربنا يعني
ما شاء الله
يديك الدرجات العليا.
يبارك لنا ويستقبلنا إن شاء الله. تسلم كثير يا أخي.
لا إن شاء الله الأمور كويسة. الدرجة طلعت خلاص الحين؟
الحمد لله 8 من 10.
ما شاء الله ما شاء الله. ألف مبروك يا أخي، إن شاء الله ربنا يزيدك ويقويك ويديك ويعمل لك سندك للأخوات ويرحم الوالد.
اللهم آمين.
طمنا عليك، شوف الدقن ما شاء الله كبيرة.
ماشي هو كده.
أيوه.
ماشي كويس الحمد لله.
ماشي كويس.
الحمد لله.
المهم صحتك كويسه وامورك كويسه، الجماعه بيجاي كويسين والله.
ما في بيجاي
كلهم تمام والله.
الحمد لله.
الف مبروك.
الشغل وربنا يسهل ان شاء الله.
لا ما عندك مشكله. مهم استمر في البيت شدي. السودان ما ينفع، خليك قبلك بس.
لا ان شاء الله. سلم معك انا حجي والجماعه ما ضغطوا منهم برضه، ناس حجي والجماعه.
لا بتجي تعلق زياره كده وامشي يعني، ما في ما يمنع، لكن البلد وضعها والله لا يسر لا يعجب بيني وبينك يعني.
اي لا سلم على الاهل وراني والاولاد ان شاء الله.
لا ان شاء الله نسلم عليهم، والف مبروك لك يا اخي. الله يسلمك يا هندسه. بارك الله فيك، في امان الله. الله يحييك.
مع السلامه ان شاء الله. شيخ القبيله السلام عليكم. شيخ تياني. شيخ تياني السلام عليكم. ما سامعني؟
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة. الشبكة بس. استاذ ابرار السلام عليكم. محمد سمية ابرار. حي عثمان. عثمان الهادي طيب. كيف يا عثمان؟ ان شاء الله بصحة وعافية يا اخي.
تمام والله، كيف انت؟
الحمد لله الحمد لله. تسلم يا اخي، شرفتنا يا اخي، يديك العافية.
امين ان شاء الله، الله يعافيك ان شاء الله انت كمان.
اللهم امين امين يا اخي. كيف انت وكيف اخوانك؟ كيف ابوك
الطريقة
وامك؟
طلعت خلاص؟
الحمد لله تمام
كويسين
ماشي.
والله.
الحمد لله
مبروك
نعم
والله،
الحمد لله.
مبروك.
الله
ان
يبارك،
شاء
الله
الله.
يبارك فيك يا اخي. تسلم تسلم كثير يا اخي، شرفتنا.
امين امين ان شاء الله.
الحمد لله. لو قاعد مع جميع مقدمين اسلم عليه مصيبه لو قريبه.
السلام عليكم، كيف الطيب؟
سلام زيبه.
كيف يا
السلام عليكم. وعليكم
باشمهندس؟
السلام ورحمه. الحمد لله بصحه وعافيه يا اخي. كيفك يا اخي؟
الله يبارك فيك، ألف مبروك إن شاء الله يا ولدي، ربنا
الله يبارك
يوفقك
فيك.
من
الله
نجاح
يبارك فيك
لنجاح إن
جميعا.
شاء الله يا رب العالمين.
ربنا يولدك ان شاء الله. تسلم تسلم كثير يا اخي.
اللهم آمين إن شاء الله، تسلم
اللهم
إن شاء الله.
امين امين
وفق يا رب.
امين امين.
الله يخليك.
تسلم تسلم
الله
كثير.
يسلمك.
وعليكم السلام ان شاء الله.
الله يبارك.
شيخ الطياني.
مرحب.
اهلا اهلا يا اخي، كيفك يا اخي؟
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمه.
ازيك يا باشمهندس؟
الحمد لله بصحه وعافيه.
كيف صحتك؟
والله في امان الله.
الحمد
رايق.
لله الحمد لله الحمد لله. we are very proud really
لا تسلم
والله.
والله. لا
الف
تسلم
الف الف
والله.
مبروك والله.
يديك العافيه.
والله الف مبروك ان شاء الله ربنا يوفقك.
الحمد لله الدقي ماشي الحمد
كيف
لله.
انت؟ ان شاء الله كويس؟ كيف صحتك؟
الحمد لله الحمد لله بصحه وعافيه.
تمام انت؟
لا رايق رايق.
الحمد لله رب العالمين. رفعت
الحمد لله.
راسنا، يديك العافيه
تسلم
ويوفقك
كثير
ان
يا
شاء
اخي.
الله.
اللهم امين امين يا رب.
الله يديك العافيه، ربنا يحفظك.
كيف معك؟ كيف
الله
الروح
يبارك
معكم؟
فيك.
حاجه سعديه. السلام عليكم يا اخي. الحمد لله والله تمام يا اخي.
ألف مبروك يا أخي، ألف مبروك
الله يبارك فيك يا
والله.
اخي. تسلم
بديك
كثير يا اخي.
العافية
يديك
إن شاء
العافيه.
الله. تسلم
اللهم
والله،
امين امين.
الله
جميعا
يبارك فيك.
جميعا.
كيف كويس؟
كيف احوالكم
الحمد
واخباركم؟
لله، تسلم والله. الله
الحمد لله
يبارك فيك،
الحمد
الحمد لله والله، باركينك بس والله، الله يديك
لله.
العافية،
تسلم
وفقك
كثير
يا
يا
رب
رب. الله يعز ان
العالمين.
شاء الله. ربنا يجمع ان شاء
آمين
الله.
إن شاء الله،
تسلم
الله
تسلم.
يبارك
شنو ما
فيك.
جايين قريب؟
لا 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 زقطه من بلدنا.
يا
ما عليك.
باشمهندس
زقطه خلاص انا.
ما جايين قريب؟
لا زقطه من بلدي هربنا من بلدي خلاص.
السلام عليكم.
يا خدالي. السلام عليكم يا اخي. وعليكم السلام ورحمه.
كيف الحال؟ ألف مبروك ما شاء
الحمد.
الله.
الله يبارك. الله يبارك فيك يا اخي. الحمد
داليا
لله
دي.
تمام. كيف انتوا؟ اي
ربنا يوفقك
كثير
كمان
يا.
كمان إن شاء الله يا رب.
اللهم امين امين. تسلم كثير يا اخي. ربنا يديك العافيه.
آمين يا رب، يديك العافية.
الحمد لله الحمد لله. سلم معك على مصعب
الله
الجمعه.
يبارك فيك. ما شاء الله ربنا يوفقك ان شاء الله.
اللهم امين امين. يديك العافيه.
يحفظك.
تمام. تسلم كثير. يلا. معلش التأخير، وفي ناس طبعا طلعوا، فالله يبارك فيهم جميعا. هو أهلنا وحبايبنا هو زي ما يقولوا تكتمل الفرحة بكم يعني. فتسلموا جدا على متابعتكم، وشكرا يعني. وربنا يجمع الناس جميعا إن شاء الله، والناس بيتلمى يعني. الحرب والأمور والشتاء تيجي في بلد، لو ما في بلد في ولاية ثانية، ونتلمى إن شاء الله. والسلام عليكم. كده أقول آخر فرصة إذا زول خش نسلم عليهم ونوقف على كده إن شاء الله. فهو يا جماعه نستاذن منكم لوقت ثاني ان شاء الله. السلام عليكم.